Okay, so hi, John. Really happy to have you here on my channel. John Keegan is a dating coach from New York City. He's been featured in the New York Times, in Men's Health, in Humans of New York. I think you've also been in like WikiHow, basically helping people on how to get to know women or just how to they get started with dating and all that. And like what I really love about John is that he's really like spontaneous and he has like a very good, like friendly energy, but not friendly as in like too friendly, but just in like really nice, like a good heart. And yeah, there's just this nice energy that I felt about him. For, you know, when I was on the first time, we did a workshop together back in 2019 when I invited him to Zurich. And I really wanted to have you here on the channel because I think a lot of what you're talking about and kind of like your approach and your mindset is something that the world needs, I would say. So really happy to have you here, John.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, we had a great time in 2019. Uh, it was something I'm hoping we're going to do again, something special like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I've been, just a little, yeah, I've definitely been in all those things you said. And, with WikiHow, they just give, I just give them advice and they turn them into those fun little articles about how to, help people approach or, deal with all the little texting things that we deal with or getting in and out of relationships. So I'm like their go-to dating guy now. But really like my expertise really is just coming in on the day in and day out coaching that I've been doing since 2007, literally coaching men to meet and connect with women and develop their confidence and develop all those little social skills that they might just be misfiring in order to make the connection, in order to date the women they really want to date. So to find dating abundance and feeling great about themselves. So I've been doing that like literally uh, mostly one-on-one. I'll do like one or two workshops a year, but it's just one-on-one coaching, me and another guy going on a journey for several weeks, throughout, while, we meet a few times a week and we just continue that journey so that they find that they're able to step into the power that you and I have stepped in and experience that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, actually what I'd like to do with, especially with people like you who have like a kind of like a very interesting journey, I love to ask you, like, how did you actually get started on this whole dating journey? Like, how did you end up being a dating coach?
Yeah, it was probably like anybody who's a dating coach. It's not something you go to college for. It's not something you say maybe now kids will say that, but when I was coming up, there really wasn't a word dating coach. Just to be clear, it was like when I realized, oh, people will pay me to do this. I was on Google. I was trying to set up a website and make things, and I was like into Zen stuff, and I was an actor originally, and I was trying to figure out what is this that I'm exactly doing? And then what I realized, Google needs something defined. You got to find it. Oh, dating coach, coaching dating. So that became a word. I'm sure I didn't invent it, but it was like around that time that was happening. And back then, if you were a guy looking for help, you would find like a pickup guy teaching night game in a bar in a club and, doing all kinds of tricks and whatnot. And here I was trying to teach real people in New York City where I was to meet and connect real guys who wanted to meet real women and just be themselves and all that. So I came in, as the dating coach. So that was how I started the business. But before that, myself, I was an actor in New York. I moved here a long time ago to be an actor, and I was doing a lot of theater, a lot of plays, some commercials, here and there, a little bit on a TV show, some independent movies that no one saw. And, I was hustling that and really working hard at it and dreaming big on it. And I had to do sales jobs to pay my way. So I would get a job for a big company doing sales. For my disposition, it was pretty good. I was on my own all day. I go talk to, wasn't in an office, but at the end of the day, it wasn't congruent with who I was. I was an artist, so to speak. I was called, something, and I was just like, okay, it's not really for me. So at one point, I had a girlfriend that I met in a play I was doing. Not a good idea because now once that goes bad, you got a real drama queen on your hands. No joke, and you have to see them every day. So, so what I realized is I need to meet women all these beautiful women walking by me on the streets, all of them, they're like all day long. And I'd be out there as a salesman, I'd be outside, didn't have an excuse. They were walking by me. There they are. Oh my God, I'm right next to it. And I couldn't break the ice. I couldn't start. And then I was like, I need to meet them. How can I do it? I don't want to go to bars. I don't want to get drunk. I want to literally meet these cool, beautiful, interesting women that are walking by me. And so I started training myself, kind of like when I went to college, I studied this guy called B.F. Skinner. He created behavior modification. And it was sort of like fade past your anxiety, move yourself past your anxiety. So I started training myself just to say, okay, I'm not going to pick up the girl. I'm going to move past my anxiety. So, and it would be little things. And now you got to remember, there's no information how to do this. This isn't like a thing that you can just get on YouTube and look. So it was as simple as, okay, I'm just going to go up to this very attractive girl and I'm going to say something like, excuse me, miss, do you happen to know where the Whole Foods is? Even though I live right next to it. sort of like, oh, it's over there. Yeah. So it would be like that. Or, excuse me, miss, I really like those shoes. So basic things just to go from not doing anything to doing something. And then when I realized, hey, these women aren't shooting me, they're mostly nice, then I started to build on that, and get a little more bold. And then it would be like, well, how can I transition from some way of starting into a conversation? So then I would I would always give myself the out, like, hey, I'm not picking the girl up. I'm just going to go from however I start into let me introduce myself, or let me guess something about them. And I just started building this way to finally get to the point where I challenged myself. Okay, Lord, my last phase of like blowing apart my ego, was I'm going to ask 5 girls out every day, no matter what. And that means no matter what, even if it's 11:59 at night and I only got 4 and there's a girl looking at me like, please don't talk to me. I was going to ask her out because I had to get those 5 in, So it was, so even if it was silly, like the girl's like, I'm married. I'm like, well, I'd still love to get your phone number. It was just like, I'm going to ask these 5 girls out no matter what. And by doing that, I freed myself and started to have real fun doing it. It became less heavy and less, this and that. But along that journey, I was going, and I realized, at that time I wanted to be an actor. It wasn't, I wasn't, making big bucks at it. I wasn't on billboards. And it was my identity, my happiness was hinged upon the outcome of that, and that wasn't working out. So then I hinged my outcome on that, hey, if I'm not going to be Leonardo DiCaprio, what I am going to do is I'm going to meet all the women in the world. I'm going to be a ladies' man. I'm going to be great at that, and I'm just going to have to do it myself. I'm just going to have to do it. And that was really good, because the dream of that most men have is, I'm going to be successful, then the women will come. So it's basically has nothing to do with I'm going to challenge myself as a human being and be authentic and be the best. It's basically I'm going to have all this, and then they'll just come. They'll just approach me, and then I don't have to do any real work. And the thing about this process is you got to do real work. You got to go through it. You got to actually step into real power, real authentic empowerment, and you have to challenge yourself day in and day out. You got to step outside of your comfort zone over and over, and you got to learn about yourself. So along that process, not only did I realized, okay, after I did, countless approaches and countless exchanges, I realized, oh, now I've hung my identity on this and it's making me unhappy. Oh, I better be the best. I have to get the most beautiful. And then I just realized, hey, this is just fun. This is a process, a meditation for me. This is a way of being. And hey, maybe I won't be the ladies' man either. Maybe I won't be that guy either. And you know what? I still like being me. And that was a big for me. Yeah, I'm getting some dates, this and that, but maybe I'm not dating whoever is supposed to be the best. But at that time, but I realized, hey, I like being me anyway. And there was a real freedom in that, like a Zen-like freedom. And there was a real happiness that I try to get to. When guys sign up to me, they sometimes they'll have that feeling like, a big part of fear of hiring a coach would be like, well, what if I coach and then it doesn't work out? What if I find out, oh, I'm really not that guy? And it's like, you have to go through that point where it's like, you can't hinge your identity on it. But what you can do is learn a practice for being social and flirting that works, and you practice it, and that will bring you abundance in dating, no matter who you are. If you really practice it, but everybody starts from where they're starting from. Everybody's got to work out what they're working out. At one point, I got so good at approaching. A friend of mine said, who was an entrepreneur, he said, why don't you teach that? And my idea of a guy who taught that was not high. I thought, oh, it's like these guys teaching tricks and up to no good. And I said, I'm an actor or Shakespeare or whatever. And then eventually it made sense. Like you can do something you create on your own and help people or try, or you can do work for a company and sell something that you don't care about. So I said, let me try it. And then for me, for the first time in my life, someone handed me money. Well, besides acting, which was, but I didn't invent acting. I kind of invented what I was doing, and I was like, when it gave me just $100 for walking around with them for a couple hours. And I was like, wow, my mind was blown. Somebody's going to pay me to be me and to do something I'm having fun doing and that I'm making up on the spot. It was like really powerful. And that began my journey. That began my journey from guy who was feeling disempowered and heartbroken to and the artist mindset, which is often a victimhood mindset, to all of a sudden switching into an empowered mindset, to a creator mindset, to I'll make my own destiny mindset. I won't wait for someone to tell me I'm good enough. And so I switched from that guy to this other guy, and that was probably the greatest switch in my life, for sure, and that was just the beginning of my journey, and then it really took off, Yeah.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that journey. And I'm curious about, like, usually I always say there's, let's say, two or sometimes more, but two kind of main motivations. One is like going to or going away from something, right? And you could also call it kind of like pain or pleasure, or pain or, I don't know, joy. And what would you say, like being honest about yourself when you started this journey? Was it you were coming from that pain of being heartbroken and wanting to kind of get over this and wanting to like get a handle on this? Or was it more about the joy of like meeting people, seeing like how that affected you and your life and the other people positively? Or maybe it was a mix of both or something else. But how was the motivation to get done?
Yeah, I would say at that point, honestly at that point, and we have to go back in time, but I would say at that point, I was a very driven guy now, but to be an actor, you can be like very driven and just get nothing. It's a very hard, and the world has changed a lot since then. Now you can really make your own stuff and all that, but then it was like these few people have to say if you are chosen or not, and a lot of people who want to do it and just a little bit of real work, pay, there's only a tiny fraction. Most of the people are born into it. And then there's the rest. And then there's, maybe you'll get something, right? So, but there's all these people who wanted to do it, and that was before all these people make their own TikToks and get enough attention that way, But, so for me at that point, I was rock bottom in emotion. I was like, man, I don't want to do these sales jobs anymore. It's incongruent with who I thought I would be. It's incongruent with the soul of an artist. I was called, and I don't want to be stuck like that anymore. And I was just thinking I'd rather die than continue to do this. I'd rather die and I really got to that point. I wasn't suicidal, but I really thought I'd just rather be dead than live out a life, live out this storyline. It wasn't for me. So, and there was a heartbreak, and there was also just like this yearning. I want to know all these women, I want to know them all. Some guys just want to get married and have kids right away. They don't need to do that. I had to do it. I always wanted to do it. And I just thought there would be a way that it would happen. And then, and that's really how it started. And a funny story, I remember I actually got an audition for Law and Order, that TV show. And I had a script, and I was on the street. I was doing my sales job in some like shitty suit. And I was standing on a street corner in Chelsea, New York, and I was holding the script. And I was like, oh, let me try to use this to pick up girls. I was approaching. I was like, hey, can you help me with my lines? And they're like, oh, yeah, nice try. I'm like, no, seriously, I got an audition. Can you help me with my lines? Yeah, right. So that was one of my early failed attempts at trying to stop girls on the street, get them to read the script with me. You know? But really, it was for me. It was like, hey, I got to figure out a way to live this life if it's not going to be this. And that was a hard dream to die. You know, I went at it for a long time. You know, if this isn't going to be at this acting deal or whatever all this is, or I'm not going to be in a band, or I got to figure out a way that's coming from me. And that was, and you know, look, and they say like the universe loves, you know, when boldness. And, you know, interestingly enough, I was like, I literally, this was interesting. I said, I'm going to make my own stuff. And I went down to this camera store and I bought, back in the day, there was this camera that was the first time you could film like a video camera that looked like film. And I bought it. $1,000 Panasonic DX, it was called. And I bought it. But while I was buying it, I met this guy who he liked me, and he called me like 2 weeks later, and I just lost my job. And he called me and he said, hey, aren't you an actor? You want to do these interviews? And I was like, yeah, I'm an actor. I'll do these interviews. And all of a sudden I was on all the red carpets and I was interviewing famous people. Every famous person that you can name them, I shoved them. It was like this kind of interview. And you know, I'd shove it in and he would be back here and I would just do that. And I'd ask him some questions and I was getting to do all that. So I was getting to see, you know, what I wanted to be was coming at me. And then at that same time, I started doing this coaching. It was all at once. And then I never, ever, and that little stint lasted a little bit, but it came back full circle now because I do a lot of street interviews with real people, you know. But I started to get my first job on. Back then there was something called Craigslist. I mean, people probably don't use it anymore, but believe it or not, it was posting ads on Craigslist, like learn how to meet and connect with women anywhere and everywhere under the sun. And guys responded, real guys in New York, not creepies or anything, you know. It was like, wow. And then I was like, okay, this is working. And then they started to write about me in these forums that started to happen. This guy's the best coach. And then I started getting people calling me from other, hey, I'm coming into New York. I want to meet you. And then all of a sudden I started to make money, enough money to pay my little bit of rent and everything and eat. And I never, ever had a job again, you know, and then it started to build to the point where somehow I got in the New York Times. They did a giant story on me. And then that took it to another level. Then all these TV shows started calling. And for like, there used to be a reality TV show thing, like every month, some reality show would call me and there would almost be a reality show, you know, or I'd be on Fox and Friends in the morning or whatever. So there was just like a lot of excitement for me that enough that it said, hey, I don't need this acting thing. I'm just doing my own thing now, you know? And I just never looked back, you know, and just went full forward. And then I just, and been blessed that I just always got clients. And it wasn't that I was the best marketer. It was sort of like, just doing the work, you know, and people showing up. People kept showing up and I kept doing it. You know? So I kept getting better. I continue to get better.
Yeah. Nice. And that's a long journey, basically, a long journey, and like a very, I think like what I'm really resonating with this idea that at some point you feel like what is, like, am I really living? Like, am I really excited? Like, am I really like in the juice of life, or am I just trying to like achieve some kind of goal? You know, maybe in your case it was acting at some point, which you were like, okay, that served a purpose at some point, but it stopped really serving a purpose because it's not really, you know, giving me the kind of experiences or life that I really want, or it's just not necessarily, you know, it's just not the thing that's really like making me excited. Was that like the case that you felt like there's maybe more excitement, or there's something deeper that's kind of like getting alive when you talk to these women or when you get out into the streets? Or how was that? Because you said like you were really passionate and driven for the acting thing, but then when you start to get to, you know, the dating, talking to women, talking to people, getting out there was something that kind of got unlocked. How was that? Like, how was that trend? Like, what was unlocked there?
Yeah, what I know for sure, and I had this real feeling like all my blocks, I've really felt, and I believed it wholeheartedly, and I know I was right now, is that whatever's blocking me in life, why the abundance wasn't flowing in my life, whatever was blocking me had to do with women. And I really knew
Mm,
it had to do with that, not just really women, but the fear, the apprehension, the resistance, the wall of blockage that I had to go through it instead of avoid it. And I had to stop saying, when I arrive over here, then they'll give me this. Then I can be okay. I had to go through it. There was no way around it. There was no way of
mm,
achieving to really do this. And I can say this. I coach really high net worth people, really wealthy people, like mind blowers, and they did do that. And they can hardly talk to someone on the street. They have to build those
mm,
muscles. Now they're doing it. Now they're all right. Now this is something, and they go at it like guys who would make that kind of money. But it's like
mm,
in the end, of course, he can get a gold digger any day of the week, but can he just actually go and connect with real beauties and real women,
mm,
real interesting women on the street? They don't care what he has. It'd
mm,
be nice if they love him and he has it, but they're not going to go out with him just because he has it. And then he has to go through it. So I realized that I had to go through that. I had to go through that fear. And it wasn't just the approach. That was just the beginning. I realized as I was doing it, I'm a pretty funny guy, and I was being a lot of funny and very entertaining, and I was really engaging them. And then I would get a number, and they wouldn't respond, and I'm like, "What the fuck? What's going on?" And
mm,
I realized, oh, they didn't learn a thing about me. Not because I didn't know to share about myself, but because I didn't want to share about myself. I didn't
mm,
like life. I didn't want to tell them where I lived. I didn't want to tell them. I didn't want to tell them I was an out of work actor. I didn't want. It was just like a lot of pain around that. And then
mm,
and then what that made me do is okay. So that woman is like a mirror reflecting back to you, like all what you need
mm,
to work on now. Here's
mm,
what you need to work on now. All the women in the world were telling me, you need to work on yourself. You need to develop your interests and passions. You need to focus on something you can feel great about sharing.
mm,
That's what
mm,
I
mm.
nurturing my interests and passions, focusing on my little business. I made writing and sharing with people and
Yeah,
become something I could be proud of.
it's almost like you wanted to connect, but you didn't really want it to open up, right?
Mhm.
Like as
Yeah.
in really share like who you really are, like really sharing from that. Because maybe some people I tended to do that. I realized at some point because I was like, I'm really into obviously authenticity because my YouTube channel was called Embodied Authenticity. I changed it
Yeah.
to my real name because I thought that's actually more authentic. My real name, that's
Yeah.
some
Right.
some whole some kind of like abstract name. But anyways, what is really like what I found really fascinating is that I started to like to share a lot about myself and maybe even vulnerable things, but I wasn't able to really feel that. Like I wasn't able to like really share them from feeling, from actually really sharing them as like not just information, but also as emotion, as like I'm really sharing who I am with you and I'm connecting through it, not just sharing information, because you might be sharing information or might be not sharing information, but you might maybe, even if you're sharing information about yourself, you're not connecting. Or you could not share information about you, but still connecting because there's a layer of emotion and of opening up that, that there could even be like another level of conversation and of connection. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would say 100%. And that's the journey. That's why I can say after all these years, it never gets boring, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's always brand new because you're always brand new. And especially a
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy who wants to, I guy who would be listening to this or a woman who might be listening, it's someone who likes to learn and to grow and to open up and be more than they were yesterday. And so, yeah, there was just one more layer after another. And there still is. There's always, limiting beliefs are insidious. The I am not enough voice is so powerful. And you could do, okay, now I have all this money. Now I have, credible career. Now I have, whitened my teeth. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm too old. or I'm too short, or I'm too, or in my case, my penis is too big. Whatever it is, whatever, no, whatever it is, there's some voice that'll come. And it's like training yourself like a Jedi, like a Zen master to say, okay, that little nagging, I am not enough voice, he just changes the content, but it's the same thing. It's just there to stop you from being in the moment, stop you from living this life as it's happening. And that's the practice. Life is now. It's happening now. And this guy's telling you, he's always saying, well, in the future, you'll be you, but not today. You're not you today. You didn't sleep enough. It's too gray out. It's this. It's just not today that you should live fully. And it's like look, the focus on life in the now, and then your object of attention in our case is often another person, and going in and being curious about them, investigating them, because something about them inspired you to take action. And instead of saying, "Oh, there's something beautiful, someone," or I want to go over and say hi," and then retracting. If you say, "Oh, there's something beautiful," "Oh, but I'm not enough." So he starts with inspiration and then you go back. So it's like, there's someone beautiful and I'm going to go break the ice and see what happens and investigate. Then you really become who you are. You become bigger. You become in the now. You become present. You don't have these little guys in there anymore, And if they show up, you just keep pushing past and keep focusing on the other person and not on them. A lot of guys I work with, when they get stuck in their head, it's because they're not paying attention to the moment. They're only paying attention to those little voices. And then they're just like, here. For example, I'm walking down the street yesterday. I got a client. He's a very handsome French guy. Good looking guy. French, that's a good brand. French guy. That's very helpful when you meet a girl.
French accent.
Yeah. But women are checking him out. He's fairly tall. He's got a good head of hair, whatever. He's got all the things. So he's walking, but he's so in his head, he doesn't even notice. I'm like, did you notice that woman was looking at you? Did you notice? He never notices because he's always like this. He's like up in here living. So I'm training him just to be present, be in the now. And all of a sudden, when a girl looks at you like that, right? Oh, yeah. Hello. Hi. They smile. You have a nice smile. And it really becomes that easy instead of this war, It's like the more present we are, the more self-loving and self-accepting we are, just, whatever, despite whatever limitations we think we have, but we just accept it. We just be with it. We own it. And we move and we just go and do what we want to do. The more great things are going to happen in your life, new life experiences.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny because I haven't talked on this channel a lot about this, but I've also I think probably my most intense journey of personal development was when I started to talk to women on the streets, in shops, in everyday life situations, because it created this fascination, obviously for women and this whole dating, but also just communication, connecting and all that. But also it just showed me myself, or I saw where I didn't it's almost I realize, where am I not expressing myself? Where am I not present to the moment? Where am I, held back or whatever? Because women are such a mirror. It's like an insane mirror. And it's also just, I think because obviously there's men and women. Some people might debate it nowadays because there might be intersex or whatever. But I think that's it's a very classic polarity, men and women. And then, obviously, I would say men and women, they both have masculine and feminine energy, as in it's kind of like a polarity we have inside of ourselves. But, we can, men generally have, let's say, more masculine energy than women. Women have more feminine energy than men. But, we can develop those kind of archaic qualities. We can develop both of them. But seeing the other side of the polarity helps us to kind of understand the whole spectrum better, the whole spectrum of ourselves and of other people. Because you need some reference to see where am I? If you don't have reference to anything else, you don't know where you're standing with no one, right? And you need polarity. You need different people, and especially when it comes to women like that, or dating, I think that's the area where most people have the most difficulty to really get get a handle on it, or oftentimes don't even want to get a handle on it, or don't even want to kind of look at it, because it just brings up everything. It just brings up all the fears, but it also brings up all the excitement, right? And so I think, yeah, for a lot of people, being, going on this journey of like learning to, how do I relate with other people, be it in dating or be it in even in business. If you know how to talk to people, if you know how to connect, if you know how to open up, it's going to change everything, right? And for me, that was like probably the greatest teacher of all, like how to connect with other people, how to, how to open myself up, how to share really authentically, and not just trying to like tell a story and see like I'm trying to hide behind the story, and like all these layers, like it's so like it's so multi-layered, right? And so when it comes to the whole journey of like connecting with other people, let's say some people are listening to this podcast and they're like, well, it's all nice that you're talking about all this journey and connecting and blah, blah, blah. But like, how would people get started? What are a few things that people are missing where you can help them get started on this journey? Be it a man or be it a woman, like what should they do to kind of be able to connect more with other people?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of great stuff there. Like when you get into a relationship, there has to be a polarity, and we all have masculine and feminine traits. It's just like a label, but it's like there's forces in us, and that creates that polarity. And the more you go out and experience people, the more you discover all the essences of you and what you combine well with in another person. And that's another exciting thing about it. Like someone could look like your ideal person, and then you realize, that's just that polarity, the chemistry, they call it. All those, that just don't line up here. Whereas some other person may be like not what you had down on paper or what you thought was, and then all of a sudden you're talking to them and they light you up in every way, So it's like finding that in another person and honoring it, and yeah, and also not making yourself smaller or less so someone else can be bigger. It's like finding something that someone else can be all of them and you can be all of you, and whatever that is, and that there's enough polarity, especially when it comes into the sex. Sex just can't do people laying flat on the bed. It's got to be some polarity. So yeah, but where you brought it back to is like, the other thing you said was presence. What you really develop is presence. So when you walk into a room and you don't say a word, you're all lit up. Most people are stuck here. They're looking at the phone, they're on the computer, just here, one dimensional. And it's like when you're out connecting with other people and taking that risk, it is the same risk I was taking when I was an actor and I had to go on stage. There's a stage, you're about to get on it. There's people out there in the audience. They're going to be watching. And then there's like a point. The first thought is why didn't I just be an accountant in the back room? And I'm going to go live at home with my mom. This is much better. Why would I do this to myself where I step in front of all these people? There's that resistance always. And they say a lot of great actors, they're throwing up in buckets before they get out there, and then they go and do the performance of a lifetime. But it's not much different than when I see someone I'm attracted to, and I'm like, I'm going to go talk to them. You're pushing yourself past your comfort zone, your little small world, and you're going outside of yourself and putting yourself up for judgment, for rejection, for a cringe moment, for other people potentially seeing you be cringy, you're doing all of that, and it's like the same feeling as stepping on a stage. You're not performing, but you're living in an elevated way because you're stepping outside of your small little world and into potentially, by the way, anybody you talk to could be create a whole new storyline in your life and in their life. They could be you could have a great conversation that changes the way that you be. You could have real chemistry and go out on a date and have mind-blowing sex. That's part of your, life. You could fall in love, have babies, start a business, whatever. All that happens when you take that risk. Anything can happen. So then you develop presence because you're communicating, you're expressing, you're talking about yourself, and you just become charismatic. You can actually develop charm. by
Mm,
doing this. And honestly,
mm,
it is the best self-development tool. And I've done them all. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the one that they say is, oh, that's the best one. And 100% is sitting in a workshop for 5 days, looking at your toes. You're telling me going out and challenging yourself and connecting with other human beings? Really? And pushing yourself at dealing with your own ego and others' egos and pushing yourself past it and learning about yourself that way? You tell me that isn't the most powerful thing. It's also a lot of people's biggest fear, and you should go into your fear,
mm,
especially this kind of fear.
mm,
Um, so small things. And I always say, what's going to get this going? The journey's endless. It's your life. It's the now. And it's the smallest thing you can do to go from not doing to doing.
mm.
And one
Nice.
day to the next is different, you know? Like, for example, maybe today you feel very present and out of your head, and you can just feel fearless. And then you're like talking, chatting up to people. And maybe tomorrow you wake up and you feel very like there's a beautiful person in front of you in line at the coffee shop, and they're right there, but they feel like there's a million miles away. How do I even begin that? And you say, well, what's
Mm,
the smallest thing I can do? And you might say, I like your sneakers. Or you might say, hey,
exactly.
I always get this drink. You look like you get something fun. What do you order? You know, is this your favorite place for coffee in the city? You know, it's
Mm,
mine. You know, I
mm.
don't drink coffee. I would
Nice.
say tea, right? But so that's it's the smallest thing you can do. Let's say you're in a bookstore and there's an attractive person looking at books, and you want to talk to them. Well, what's the smallest thing I can do? I can walk over, stand next to them, and look at a book. That's small.
Mm,
I can at least take that action of moving forward and stand next to them if you're feeling
mm.
particularly resistant. And then I might say something like, "This book matches your dress," or or
Exactly. And
hey, you look like a well-read person. What's a good book you got into lately? I'm looking to get into something new.
And isn't it funny, like when you say like this whole thing about presence, it always comes down to like being aware of what's actually happening. Because, it's not that we wouldn't have come up with this idea that actually we could say something or that there's things we could do in our lives, but we might not even allow ourselves to think it, might not even allow ourselves to like go any step further on that path. Or when we have an idea of like, oh, this is an attractive woman, and I'm like, if I allow myself to think all of the things that I could think of, how I could meet her, there would definitely be some things that are coming up. But oftentimes on a subconscious level, people are just going to be filtering those ideas out, right? Because we don't even want to go there, right? And, or maybe we do see what we could do, but then we just say, well, not today because I'm feeling a little tired, or like, she's probably buying a book for her boyfriend, or whatever, whatever you could come up in your mind. But, in the end, it all comes down to understanding, like, once you see that moment, once you feel it and experience it, you see the emotion of like, oh, I want to get away from this situation. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Or like, you feel the fear, or you hear the thoughts. Suddenly you're being present to what's happening, and then you can change. Like, there you have even a choice. Because before you didn't even have a choice, right? Before, like, you're kind of like acting the way you've been acting before automatically. But then suddenly, once you start to notice that moment of like, oh, this is where I'm bailing out of what I really want to do. This is where, like, now you're basically walking, and there's two ways. Like, either I say something, or let's say I don't say something. And then you're coming to that point, and at some point, you're probably making a decision, be conscious or subconscious, If you're doing it consciously, then you have a choice. And like, what do I actually want? Well, actually, I would like to talk to her. I would like to, like to ask her about the book or whatever. But if you're not conscious about it, if you're not present to the moment, you don't realize that you actually went that way, but you didn't even realize. You only realize it after the fact, right?
Mm.
And I find this is such a fascinating moment, because if you start to be more present to the moment, and also train yourself to be more aware of like, when are these decisive moments happening, then you can actually realize, actually, there's more of a choice that I do have than I thought I was.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that way of thinking. And also, it's about recognizing in those moments that there's a moment to move forward, or a moment, like you said before, to retract. And it's like, and I would call it like an emotional risk in in the context of
Mm-hmm.
people and connecting with people. There's like, hey, if I take, or even in any context really, but in the specific context, it's like, what is it that there's this little wall of resistance that stops me from going into the next experience and experiencing myself differently than what I knew before. So let's say you're out trying to meet people and you're like, the biggest fear for most people is just starting. All right, now you get past that. I'm breaking the ice. I'm having conversations. Then it's like, well, I'm attracted to this person, but I'm just going to walk away because they're just being nice. They're just being nice. I'm going to leave. Why don't I find out actually and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're super cute. We should hang out again sometime, you know? Why don't I, like, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will just leave it in that platonic zone. And that's okay for a little while because you're getting your strength, your confidence. But at one point you got to take that next risk, which is a risk would be to share about myself. Hey, what would you guess about me? Okay. And when I tell people to guess, it goes back to what you said. You really become in it now. So if I say to you, hey, guess about me, you're like, whoa, wait, I got to engage my senses. I got to wake up here. I got to be present. No, thanks. All right, I'll help you out. I'll give you some clues, and we start making it more fun. But then I do share about myself so that you can learn about me in a playful way. But learn about me nonetheless instead of just two minds sharing resumes, boring autopilot stuff. So it's like, but taking the risk.
What do you have them guess about you?
I would say, guess my underwear size. No, I'm joking. Yeah, guess my bra size. No, I would say, no, generally, when people meet, they usually ask the same questions, just, hey, where are you from? What do you do? Right. So we could just stick along those lines and say something like, hey, where would you guess that I'm from? Could be that, or it could
Mm-hmm.
be, depend on where we're at in the conversation. But it could be, what would you guess about me? I may leave it very general, and then they'll say like, what, and they might start guess what I do, or they might look at me and say, and I find, maybe it's context. I'm here in Soho in New York, which is like, people will say, oh, are you a fashion designer? Which is a nice compliment when you're living in a fashion zone. Or you seem very creative because I'm putting off creative energy because I am, and because, I'm wearing crumpled up clothes or whatever, whatever it is, there's a look of a guy who's got it together, but doesn't care. So,
Yeah,
so they're guessing something and then they might guess something else. Oh, are you, I'm going to guess you're in finance. They can tell by an energy. So you get people to engage, or I might just start, I might start getting people, I might start sharing about interest and passions over my career. Like I might say, well, yeah, what I'm into right now is learning Brazilian Portuguese. I've been studying every day, and I realized after 6 months, I don't think I'm going to learn a second language. But I'm trying.
really.
I'm planning
You
to
should go
study
to
it. Just
Brazil
like
and live there for some time.
going in there. Yeah.
it's,
So yeah.
it's a very different thing, but okay,
Yeah.
nice.
So, or I might say, hey, well, I'm taking an improv class, or I might, bring them into my world a little bit, and then it's easy to turn around and say, oh, I would guess you yourself have a very creative energy, or you have a very thoughtful, reflective energy. Maybe I bet you're the kind of person who journals every day. Is that true?
Hmm.
Is that true about you?
About me?
Yeah,
I don't journal every day. No.
yeah, me either. Yeah, but some people do. Yeah.
Some people do. Yeah, yeah. Nice.
But I could say that you do look like a thoughtful person
Yeah.
still. Is that true?
But it's an interesting observation because thoughtful, I don't know what it actually means, Like
Oh.
maybe, it,
Yeah, like you look
I
like
could,
you care about you reflect on life, you take a moment and see
yeah,
the meaning,
yeah, yeah.
you
That
know.
for sure.
That's what I
That for
mean.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah. So then you're having a connection beyond just, hey, here's what you do, here's your job, here's your just noticing
Mm,
people, getting them to
mm,
notice you, getting
mm.
them to look at you, and
Like
challenging them to be present with you.
one thing I really found, Fred, because I've been watching some of your street interviews lately, and what I really like about it is that, and I think this is like the more subtle things are actually what really matters. Like there's a certain dance and flow to a conversation. And if you start to like see, when do I have to say something? When do I have to like leave space for them to be able to say something, or for maybe even nothing to be said for a couple of seconds? When, when is the moment to like crack a joke, or when's the moment to like connect and share something about myself? When it's the moment to really listen and really, understand what's behind what they just shared and all that. Like there's a certain dance that's happening once you start to really understand, like, social energy and like connection and conversation. And I think that's something that maybe you've already been like that's in the beginning of that journey, or that's something you really start to develop. But I really see it in you is like you understand the kind of like the dance of like what does the moment need, because it's and I find this very beautiful, because it's like it's like that natural dance where like you say something, and then at some point there needs to be a break, a breather, and then suddenly you say something, or you make a joke, and then it's funny, and then it's like, okay, so now what's going to happen? Well, who's going to say something? And then she says something, or then like, I really like that, that idea of a dance, because it really is a dance, isn't it? And
I like what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult to, I think, because I do dance. I do dance salsa, and I do dance bachata. Like, I really like dancing. And I also like the dance of like conversation. And I think it's really because you have to, on one hand, you have to know to listen, like listen to the other person, listen to what's happening on the outside with the other person and with yourself. But you also have to lead. You have to know when to have to lead, when do I have to make, a move, when do I have to say something, and when should I rather shut up,
Yeah, no, and I liked there was something you said, like, what does this moment need? Like, and that's really cool. And that comes from experience, like, and also like everybody's coming from where they're coming from. And the fun thing is like, I did have a background in acting, so that allowed me to explore a lot of facets of my personality beyond even what you would explore in, say, two people meeting for a first time, or two people flirting. That's a scene, and in that scene you don't bring politics or anger, or you don't bring, but in a Shakespeare scene you could, and that's a different facet of your personality. You can bring rage, you don't bring that into a bookstore with a nice happy flirt, right?
Exactly.
But I've explored all those facets of my personality, and then I specifically explored this scene, boy meets girl, anywhere and everywhere at any time, like probably beyond anyone, honestly, because of the amount of one-on-one coaching I do. I just can't think any other buddy that did it like that, in everyday little places, not just but in intimate settings. So what I would say is yeah, like, you want to allow yourself to explore your own personality, and hey, if you were never funny in a conversation, allow yourself to be too funny. Allow yourself to overdo it. And then, like, hey, like, I had one guy, he literally said, oh, my parents weren't funny. We were actually weren't allowed to be funny. And then he had to learn. He said, I started teaching him some techniques to crack a joke and this and that. And he went crazy. He went to the point of, he was real studious, and he went to the point of, like, way overdoing being funny in that context until he understood it. He got funny. Oh, he learned humor. He actually learned humor. He wasn't, imagine this. A lot of people just aren't that funny. This guy wasn't allowed to be funny. It was like part of get the religion or whatever, And so now he was exploring that. So it was like, explore different parts of your personality. Explore being a good listener. Like, if you're someone who wasn't listening really well, really like focus on it. Like, over listen.
Exactly.
You'll get a lot out of that, actually. Yeah.
Isn't that the same thing as a polarity thing again? Like, it's like there's a spectrum, and you have to like explore the spectrum, kind of like see both sides of the spectrum to see like what does the moment need on the spectrum right now, and then you have to like be able to, it's almost like you're playing the piano, and you're just playing like a couple of keys rather than the whole board, and then once you start to play all the keys, then you can see what's the key that's really needed in the situation. But if you can only play the upper three keys and maybe a few of the middle keys, then you can't really play the piano, right? You can't really make create the music with the other person.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what you would learn from learning to play the piano. You would at one point after playing enough, you'd be like, yeah, let's just add that in. And that becomes your talent in a way. Like somebody else might not have added that note in, but you did because you felt like it needed that, because now you know how to play the game, you know how to play this board, Yeah, and I think having said all that, at the same time, it really comes down to just being really good listener. So this is, I think, a nice thing most people don't get is you'll never really be more attractive than when you're just listening, really listening and paying attention to somebody else. And you know what? You'll never be more valuable to another human being than when you're really just listening. Because most people aren't ever seen or heard or understood. If you're like there and you're doing that, you're like literally doing that, you actually are better than when you're funny, even if you're the funniest person in the world. So it's like, and you're going to make a connection with somebody just by listening, by really leaning in, paying attention to them, hearing them, understanding them, seeing them. And that makes people like you. Oh, I like being around that person. They make me feel good about me. Not
and
that you're a great kid, but you're actually being with them.
Yeah. It's like a lot of men, they think they have to do a lot, but sometimes not doing what they need to do, because, or as in like when you're really listening, you're actually doing something in a way, but at the same time, you're not really doing something. Like you're just there. You're just like, you're letting the other person in, like you're really receiving what they're saying. And, especially as men, like there's this, like, there's maybe even more than with women, this idea to kind of like want to prove yourself, like, talk about yourself, or like say things, do things, like take action. But sometimes just listening and receiving and like understanding and really be present with the other person can be the most powerful thing you can do, which is often not what people or men associate with doing, right? Like listening is actually something very active. And at the same time, it might feel very passive if you're not used to it, right?
Yeah. And it's very hard if a guy, for example, I have a client now who's very funny, but because I know people well, especially men, I know them well in the sense of how they're operating, what their fears are. This guy's really funny, but he's so neurotic. Everything's coming. His funny is just a deflection to not, oh, haha, if I be funny, then I can avoid that. I'm about to implode because I'm fucking so neurotic and I'm not enough. So it's like his journey is about accepting and loving himself no matter what the outcome of a particular conversation is or a date is or what other people think about him. It's really like, hey, whatever's going on in his life, he's got to love and accept himself. And then, he'll still be funny, but his funny won't be coming from a deflection of, don't really look at me. I don't want you to see me. He won't be blocking being really vulnerable. And then it'll be very powerful. So it's like a lot of men will use humor just as a way to not, to be seen, really, like to obfuscate those beautiful little moments that actually make the connection, I'm funny. I can't help it, right? But I definitely, and there's always a guy in my head that's ready to tell a joke, he's firing them off all the time. But I definitely learned in my life when to drop them, I don't always hit. Sometimes
when to drop them and when not to.
Yeah. Sometimes I said it and then you fix it. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that about that mother at this time. I didn't mean.
And even with listening, it's so interesting because when it comes again to like this whole polarity idea, like exploring that spectrum, like I tended to be the guy that was like talking too much and listening too little, So, and then at some point I realized, wait a second, actually listening is really, really important. And I started to challenge myself to literally just be listening. And then when there was a silence, I wouldn't just immediately start saying something or whatever, like tell another story or something, but actually just being there and really just listening. And even if there's nothing being said, because the other person is gonna say something at some point, or maybe not, but like usually they're gonna say something and we're gonna be surprised that they're going to be taking on the conversation if you don't always just say something and say something. But at some point I start to overdo it, because at some point, it might, that's again, like, what does the moment call for? Right. And at some point, the moment calls for leadership. It's like, okay, I'm going to say something. I'm going to move this forward now. Or I'm just going to let this breathe and let the other person now take the lead for a moment or say something, and then see where this takes us from there. Right. And I think that's the beauty of this whole, let's say, social, getting to know people, dating and all that. It's like, you get to, like, if you really go and explore these facets of yourself, like, you start to suddenly see, like, what actually happens if I'm going to just listen too much? What happens if I listen too little? And what does it actually mean to listen the right amount, right? To really listen the right amount, as in, like, really be present, really listen, and really be there. And when is it actually necessary for me to really say something, and start to, like, understand these subtleties? And as you said, like, you can only understand that through experience. But if you have the mindset of really trying this out, like trying out the facets of all these things, like too many jokes, too little humor, only just listening, never saying something, to like talking too much and never listening, like exploring all these facets. I think that's one of the most powerful things one could even do in this whole dating idea. Same thing with sexual energy. If you feel like you have too little sexual energy, or do you have too much sexual energy, like exploring all of that, like there's like a whole new world that's going to open up once, because then I can explore these parts inside of me, right? The sexual energy, or the one that's more just friendly, or the one that's like more funny, or the one that's just really listening, being present, or the one that's just that really doesn't feel afraid to talk about himself as well, or whatever, like all these facets. What do you think about that?
Well, I think also, there, as you were talking, there's also, going back to the polarity, and even dance or music, as we're talking about, everything has to have tension and release. And someone who's good at really connecting with someone in a romantic way is got to understand, or seductive way is that there's pressure and there's release. And there's internal pressure, which we've been talking a lot about. I feel the pressure. I don't want to do it. And then there's just the pressure and the release in the conversation. A masculine energy is actually an energy of being able to hold space and silence for someone else to exist, for someone else to be in that moment. So that's very masculine, a container for, say, and the feminine energy can be like, the fury, the emotion, the flurry, all that. And so when a man can hold silence instead of saying, I got to fill it in, or I'm going to lose her, or she's going to, this is going to fall apart. When you say, I'm just going to be here, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to listen. Because as a friend said to me once, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? So, and that's true. So, but it's like on that polarity, it sets the polarity. You just be quiet and trust, and you have to have faith. Faith, hey, you know what? If this doesn't work out, I'm okay. If there's something going to happen here, it's going to happen. I have faith in that, and faith that this is what my process for connecting with people is good. And I don't know if you ever read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, but it's my all-time
For sure
favorite.
I did, yeah.
And what he said, is try practicing this other way of being, like where you're not always doing. It's a book about being. All other books are how to do. But this is a book about how to be and really be. And he let go of the need to constantly do, and actually just love and appreciate the now and being you in the now. And the voices will come in and they'll be like, yeah, but you got to do something. But you just say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to listen to those voices for now. I'm going to practice allowing something other way of being for myself to arise, and trust that something amazing will happen for that. But then he says, or it won't. And then you got to be okay with that too. Wow. Or that's just like saying, hey, I'm surrendering to this moment. It's okay if I don't do something. Something else amazing is going to happen. Don't worry. Or it won't. I'll take action eventually. Or I won't. you know? And they always say, like, yeah, but guess what? I'm still here, still alive. I'm feeling good in my body. Everything's okay. Like I'm gonna be okay. So, but back to like a boy and a girl sitting on a park bench and they're talking, they're having a good conversation, and the guy's like, I gotta keep talking, but he just stops and he listens to her. And then she stops talking. And then he's like, I better fill it in. Then he says, no, then when he understands pressure, tension, and release, like in a great song, it's like, let the tension build. Let there be silence for 7 seconds. Just let it be there and see what happens. And count to 7 even. And see when she fills it. Let her fill it in.
Yeah.
See when she says, oh, I better fill it in. Like a flower coming up, and then you, a masculine container, pressure. Let her do it. Play around with that.
Also, when it comes to this tension moment that you just said, or that like, that no one talks, there's like a way in which you can do that, in which it's comfortable and like creating some like nice tension. And it can be a way in which you're doing it, which is going to create a very uncomfortable, almost creepy like tension, right? Because it's like, let's say we have a conversation and like she's talking, and then at some point she stops talking, and I also don't say something, but I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, I have to not say something because I have to like listen and I have to like, but at the same time, I feel uncomfortable about it. Maybe I don't look her in the eyes. I kind of try to look away and all that. And it starts to get absolutely weird, right? But if she stops talking and I'm just there and I'm present and I'm looking into her eyes, I'm feeling relaxed. Maybe I'm smiling or I'm not smiling, but I'm really there. And we both there, we realizing, oh, something happening. Like, why don't we talk? Oh, what's that? But we're there. We're like, I'm opening to the moment. I'm opening emotionally. Then the tension that is rising is creating something nice. It's like, oh my God, what the heck is this? And it's interesting. Like for me personally, when I started to realize that, and also how to hold myself in those moments, then a lot of things started to change when it comes to dating. Because that tension that you're talking about, the tension and release, the pressure release, is very difficult for a lot of people to handle because, it's something, somehow we tend to avoid that. But actually it's something really beautiful. Like sexual tension almost only ever happens in those moments, right? When suddenly tension arises and you're enjoying it. You're actually sitting in that tension. You're enjoying the tension. You're not trying to run away from it. You actually, you're looking into the eyes, or you're staying present. You're staying open. You're not, looking away. You're like starting to be all fidgety or something. So that tension is something absolutely beautiful. And it's also something really to learn to how to deal with it, because, if you're not used to it, it can start to make her and yourself get absolutely creeped out.
Yeah.
If you can learn to deal with it, it can, get you and her to the next level of that interaction.
Yeah, and create a great experience for the other person. Create like that's what, like, wouldn't it be nice for her if it's a man and a woman polarity? Wouldn't it be nice for her to be swept off her feet? Wouldn't it be nice for her to feel all that beautiful tension and then release it with a kiss? Wouldn't it be nice? For her to have that experience and feel like she had a magic moment in her life. And then that you have facilitated that. You did enough work on yourself and put yourself in this position of uncomfortableness so many times that you actually were able to deliver that. Yeah.
One thing I like to do sometimes is, it's a little funny, but sometimes when I feel like there's a little tension happening, and I enjoy that, and I would like to kiss her, but I don't even know necessarily if I want to do it at this moment or not, but I'm just saying something like, well, if I'm feeling it right now, it's like, I just say it, I would love to kiss you.
Yeah.
But then I don't do it. I just let it be there. I'm still connecting and looking into her eyes. And that is like very straightforward tension. But if I can stay with it, it's amazing for both people, because we're there is like, oh, what is happening? What is happening? Is he gonna kiss me? Is he not gonna kiss me?
I got a little I got a little tingle when you did that, Whoa. Yeah, I felt it. I felt this. I actually felt the tension. Yeah.
Nice. And yeah.
It would be like a funny movie if like the movie started like that. Like it just starts in your face like this, and you say, "I would love to kiss you," and there's a silence, and then the camera zooms into a 90-year-old grandma, and she looks,
I love that.
let me get the hell out of here.
And then we're gonna start our podcast, and people are giving me like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah, yeah,
Nice, nice.
yeah, good.
I think we're slowly getting to kind of rounding off here on this podcast. Are there any other things you kind of like want to share or want to let people know, or some things
Yeah,
that were
no,
on your tongue?
for me, that the biggest thing is, and I really think, I want anyone that's listening is find the joy of being you, you know, and get to this point where you like yourself, like you just remind yourself all the qualities that are nice about you. So let's say you want to go out and challenge yourself today as you're listening to this, and start with you. Like, what do you appreciate about you? You know what I mean? Not who you're not. We're so busy telling ourselves what we're not. Hey, I like me. I'm a nice guy. I like me. I'm funny. I like me. I'm chill. I like me. I'm a good friend. I like me. I'm a good cat dad. I like me um, because I'm an attentive lover. I like me. I'm a great listener. I like being me. I like being me. So always like remind yourself of the qualities you like about yourself. You don't have to even embellish it. There's plenty of things to like about yourself. Just say, "Oh yeah, I like me. I'm a hard worker. I like me. I solve problems. I like me," and then go introduce yourself. "Hey, I'm John. Nice to meet you. I like me." You know, and then you come
Mm,
with that energy instead of the opposite energy, which is like, "Oh, well, I didn't do this today. I should have done that. I'm not this. I'm not that. Oh, let me go meet somebody now." Like coming at, with all that static in your frequency, So
mm,
I'm at it with the self appreciation. And then when you're out and you want to meet people, the truth is when you see someone attractive, you appreciate something about them. You're inspired. They woke you up. Wow, look at that beautiful person, right? You appreciate it. Now you're appreciating you, you're appreciating them, and you can just go over and start meeting someone based on all appreciation, right? Then you're
mm,
then they're gonna like being around you. People don't want to
mm.
be around somebody that doesn't like being around themselves, right? So you got to practice that. I like being me, and get into the joy of being you, and then go and share it. Like, hey, I like being me. I'd like to meet you and see like what it's like to be me talking to you. Uh,
Mm,
and if you don't want to, I'll go over here and do that with someone else because I like being me. You know.
mm,
And I'm
mm,
curious and I'm out there connecting. And even though I'm attracted to you and it'd be great to have a date, I don't have an ego agenda. Like I gotta have it for my identity, or I gotta get the number, or there's no happiness. It's gotta be a date. There's a fun in the process. Just like a musician who loves to play, not
mm,
because I have to play it so that I can be famous. It's because
mm,
playing music's awesome. Not because I have to be the greatest dancer in the world. That's like the joy of dancing is incredible, right?
mm.
And the joy of connecting to yourself, the world around you, and the people in it, in the moment, in life, in real life, instead of some sectioned off event, is incredible. It's like
Mm,
it's a great practice for being in the now.
mhm.
So that's my main.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And also like I think that spirit of like exploring that we kind of talked about, it's also like a really helpful idea. Like, explore yourself, like the different facets of yourself.
Mm.
Because as you go about this that you just said, you're going out there, you like yourself, you appreciate, you start to see the things you like and appreciate about yourself, and you like appreciate about the other person. And then you start to also start to see new things about yourself that you can appreciate. Maybe this other guy that you talked about, this client of yours, that suddenly start to see that he can actually be funny, right? And see,
Yeah.
so you can start to unlock new things about yourself. You suddenly, it's might make it even easier to like yourself because suddenly you are more of who you are. You're just
That's
exploring
right.
more of who you are, like you're and unlocking more of who you are, don't you?
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, being all of you, and not don't
Exactly.
shy away from that. When you're inspired by something, go into it. When you're inspired by someone, go meet them. Go
Mm,
forward, do it. Do it. You will become more you. Every time you do it, no matter what happens after you do it, you became more you. You win at hello.
Exactly.
You win at hello. As soon as
Exactly.
I say hi, I win. I went past that resistance point. You become more you. You become the guy you become courageous. You become bold. That
Mm,
becomes the frequency you live on. And people pick it up. You walk into a
mm,
room, people feel it. Whoa,
mm.
this guy's here. Yeah.
And the funny thing is that some people might be saying like, well, but I don't feel like me because when I'm doing this because I don't know, I don't really do this. Like I'm not the kind of guy that does then
Mhm.
talk to people or whatever. And then they have this idea like, well, I'm kind of getting away from who I am. But actually no, because they are exploring parts of themselves they haven't yet explored. So they're getting more themselves because they're more of who they already are. They just haven't unlocked it. They just haven't seen it, but it's always been there, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that can really help people start to see, like, you're not changing who you are to be someone else. You're just unlocking who you've already been, but you haven't discovered it yet.
Yeah, and that's right. And you're exploring. Like you said, it's an exploration and get excited about it. You're not just exploring yourself, all you're exploring life for yourself instead of what other people say or all the bullshit or all the things that come through all the different media channels at you. You're literally going out and discovering yourself, you're discovering people, you're discovering these little things we discussed today about the polarity and the chemistries and you're discovering that anew all the time, and you are endless. You are not
Mm.
finite. You can keep growing and expanding, you just can keep becoming more. And I can say one other thing before we part. My resting place all those years ago, where I lived, it was like angst and depression. I would have angst, depression. It was normal to me to feel those feelings and to be, you know, just to have negative looping in my head. And through this specific process that we discussed just now, I cured myself of that. I literally said, if I can spend 30 seconds in the moment with this person, getting to know them, that's 30 seconds. My brain's not going, I'm not enough. This isn't right. And then it was like, what about if I have a 5-minute conversation where I'm totally in and out? That's 5 more minutes than yesterday. And that's 5 minutes where my brain begins to heal. New pathways were created. Now, what if I just did
Mm.
that for 2 hours straight? What if I all of a sudden it became went from 30 seconds to 1 minute to 5 minutes to an hour a day? All of a sudden it was like little by little a healing, little by little, and it happened fairly rapidly, a healing where my resting place is serenity, peace, joy, appreciation.
Mm.
Inspiration.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My resting place is those. I'm not saying I never feel down or I never, you know, but my resting place is high frequency guy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. That was a great conversation. I think it's because what I like to do is to give people some practical advice, but also then just not just let it flow, because I think some of those things that we talked about today will help some people that have already been on this journey of like maybe dating or personal development. And there's certain ideas that are not necessarily like a very concrete step, like this, for example, the thing about exploring or the polarities and all that. It's not necessarily like a 1, 2, 3 step-by-step process, but it's
Yeah.
like some hints that you might get on the way. And then suddenly you're like, oh, boom, I heard this in the podcast. And suddenly everything changed because I started to see I could do this or that. And it's a bit more, it's less like concrete, as in practical, very concrete, specific, but it can change a lot of things for people. So thank you so much for all your wisdom and
All right. Thank you, man.
create this podcast here, this conversation. I really enjoyed it. If people want to like reach out to you to work with you, or get more from you, more insights, more wisdom, how can they reach out to you or find you?
Very easy. John Keegan Lifestyle on Instagram or YouTube. Simple. Or TikTok. But my website is The Awakened Lifestyle, because you're awakening to this way of being. And I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, live coaching. I have an online mentorship program, Someone's Far, and once a year or so, I'll end up in Europe or over there, and it'll be kind of fun. We may do something together,
Yeah.
spring or summer in Zurich, which would be cool. Like
Yes.
we're together an authenticity connection workshop. So, but if you want to follow me, I do a lot of fun stuff. Hit me up. You'll follow me on Instagram. You'll see a lot of really great interviews that I'm doing with real women in real life and other people, and putting out tips that way. If you want to coach with me directly, you can also just see my website there and hit me up. We can talk on the phone.
Perfect.
All right.
Nice. Yeah. And yeah, we were talking about doing something in Zurich, so I might keep you updated on that for anyone who's interested in that. And
Yeah.
thanks so much for being here, John.
All right. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you.
Great to talk.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye bye.